Hi, I'm Allie. Join me as I create this falling snow component design that Sheryl made. You can make it into earrings, a bracelet, necklace links, and tons of varieties of projects you can make with this simple design. If you need any materials, check in the description below the YouTube video or on the side on our site as well. Gather everything up and let's get started. So to get started on this beautiful design, we are going to start with the interior and work our way out on this component. You can see you can do it as a really pretty necklace like Sheryl did here, having that snowflake effect. I'm going to make it a component. We're going to hang it down as longer earrings. So to get started, we are going to hold the end of our thread and we are going to add 12, count them 12, of our 11-0 seed beads. In addition to the 12 11-0 seed beads, I have 3x4 millimeter Potomac Crystal rondelles here. You could also use some 4 millimeter rounds for the exact same version. Once you have your 12 beads on to your size 10 needle and your size 6 gray dragon thread, I am going to tie this into a unit or into a loop. If you're a stop bead person, you can totally do that as well. I know Sheryl's not, so since it's her design, I'm going to tie it up. So we have a double knot here that we're doing, and we're tying this into a loop. Once we have the loop here, without the beads involved in the loop, we're going to go in and we're going to get ready to connect our crystals to that loop, and we're going to connect to every other bead with our crystals, pointing them out almost in a star or a snowflake fashion. Now next to the knot, we are going to sew through 2 beads and come out through that second bead. Bring our thread and needle out through that loop, add one of your crystals and one 11-0 seed bead. From there, we're going to push it all down next to the loop. The bead our thread is currently coming out of, we're going to sew back into the crystal, not the 11-0 that's on the end. We're going to sew back into the 11-0 the opposite direction. So the thread's currently coming out the top of that 11-0. We added the crystal and the 11. We're sewing back through the 11, or back through the crystal and through the 11 coming in from the alternate side. What that's going to do is add this just sitting right on top of that bead. From here, we're going to add 6 total, so 5 more. Sew through the next bead and the one following. So sew through the next 2 beads. Coming out, add your crystal, add your seed bead. Let them fall down next to the design. Sew back through the crystal, ignoring the seed bead because it's going to act as a stopper, back into the same bead your thread is coming out of through the opposite side, and then back through the next 2 beads. So if you want to, it's going to look like you're sewing through 3 beads, the bead that your thread is currently coming out of, and then the next 2. That is 2 of those little snowflake arms that we're doing. I'm going to continue on then, adding in a total of 4 more. Here's another one. Going back through the seed bead, back through that bead that our thread is coming out of, and back through the next 2. Continue adding them till you have a total of 6 of your crystals hanging out on the exterior of this little design. As we add our last crystal in place, I'm also sewing through the next 2 seed beads, which is going to be that first bead that our thread was coming out of when we added the first crystal. We're going to upgrade, meaning we are going to sew through the crystal, and we're also going to sew through our seed bead. As we come out through the seed bead, this component progresses really easily. We're going to go through and we are going to add between each of the top of these seed beads 1 additional seed bead, 1 additional crystal, 1 additional seed bead, and connect them. So seed bead, crystal, seed bead, and you're going to sew on to the next 11-0 at the top of the next crystal. Again, seed bead, crystal, seed bead, on to the next one. It's a very simple component that I think you'll enjoy making and playing around with all different colors to use. If you do switch up the count, the crystal size, anything like that, make sure to comment below the video and add to that dialogue so others can also learn. Bring in here our seed beads, coming around. So there's 4 in, I'm going to include a total of 6, just like the 6 that we had, because we're connecting all of those areas. Once you have this connection, you have this little basically round piece. Now the way to get it more marquee shape is we're going to add some seed beads to the top and the bottom of the project. I'm going to go back through that first seed bead there, go through the next seed bead as well as the next crystal. And you don't want to pull too tightly. If it starts to cup, that's not the desired effect that we want. If it starts to cup a lot, you can always add a little 15 in between there. Coming out this seed bead here, or the crystal, I want you to go through the next 3 seed beads and bring your needle out. Once you're through those 3 seed beads, prior to going through the crystal, that's where we're going to add our wire guard and our connector to connect to our chain. If you only want to have it on an earring and you don't want to have the wire guard on each side connecting to a necklace, I'll show you how to do this one. And then we're going to finish it off, and then I'll explain how you're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. So coming out here, we're going to add 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 of our seed beads. Those 5 seed beads will sit right on top of this crystal round. You're going to go over top of the round and into the next group of 3 beads. Those are just going to sit right at the top there. From here, we're going to sew down. So if you don't want to do anything else, you're just kind of moving along here. Sewing around that exterior row again till you get to the opposite side. When you get to the opposite side, we're going to do the exact same thing. Oops, I went too far. Come out after the seed beads, not the crystal. And now we're going to add some seed beads to this opposite side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 seed beads. From here, go again around back to where we have that little starter spot, and see how you get that nice little snowflake look. Sewing all the way down here. And we're going to add 1 wire guard. If you want to finish it up that you're connecting to 2 chains, you'll add a 2nd wire guard here. When you get to that opposite side, I want your thread and needle to exit through bead number 3 on that grouping of 5. So remember, we put 5 beads at the top here. I want you to exit bead number 3. What that's going to do is have you exit right at the point of the design. Here's where we're going to grab our wire guard, and I'm choosing to use a gunmetal one. We're going to sew through the wire guard, down through the opposite side of the wire guard, and then you're going to hold out for a second. If you want to use jump rings, you can go ahead and continue on without putting anything in there. We're going to connect directly to our chain. So I'm going to use the same silver chain that Sheryl did with her design with the opal and gold. I'm using the oval ring chain. So it's a little bit thinner chain, brighten up the design a little bit. You can use gunmetal chain if you want to, but you're going to cut your chain into whatever desired length you want between the projects. If you're not sure what that length is yet, you can just connect it to the whole spool and then look to cut in between. I'm going to then sew through that final loop of chain, making sure that final loop of chain does not have a cut in it, making sure that it's soldered, that it's not somewhere where you cut. Feed that through the thread, and it's also going to go then onto that wire guard at the top. And just kind of push that through there. It'll float on the top then of the wire guard. At the opposite side, you're going to come back through that 11 that your thread is currently coming out of, and that'll pull the wire guard right to the top. This has the chain then that will hang down from the earring that you will connect to that wire guard. Last thing I need to do is to get this center thread towards the center of the project in order to cut it off. If you want to attach a wire guard to the opposite side, you sew down through out bead number 3 here on that tip of 5 and do the exact same thing. It's also really pretty for just the center design of a bracelet. From here, if you want to go up and reinforce, you can see Sheryl actually pinched her wire guards a little bit closer together. And what that's going to do is make that sit right on top. I'm going to take my thread and needle, go down through the side here. Make sure to come out one of the seed beads that sits right above that inter row of the little spikes of crystals that we created. Go down through the crystal toward the center of the design. And as you come out down the crystal towards that center of the design, what it's going to give you the opportunity to do is line up with your knot. Kind of turn it over, see where that knot is. I'll bring my thread towards the back, not sewing through anything, just bringing it towards the back, and then see how far over I need to sew in order to get that knotted. Because I'm using the gray thread along with those gunmetal 11OC beads, you won't see the knot, so I don't have to worry about getting rid of my thread much. I'm just going to take the 2 thread ends, tie them together, right over left, left over right, and burn that thread edge down. I love components like this because there's so many uses for them. I'm going to create, again, an earring with this one. Sheryl created a lovely necklace. I'm going to model them both for you. That way you can see how this component can be used in so many different ways. All I need to do now is get my exact length of my chain that I want, and it's going to hang down as a free-floating earring as I go in and I add my ear wire to the top of the chain. I'm going to keep the chain long right now, slide the chain onto the back of the ear wire, open up the ear wire ever so slightly, pulling to the side, let that fall down on it, and close it back up. This works really well for a long earring because there's no front and back to the design. If I want to make it shorter, I can decide that. It's always easier to make it shorter than it is to make it longer. So go ahead and keep that extra length to it. Try it on, decide where you want it to be, and then you can cut it down if you choose to do so. So you can make this into a really great set of earrings, into a necklace like Sheryl has here, where there's a number of different components, big enough to slide over the head. Looks great for that fall winter season over sweaters, and really is eye-catching in that snowflake design. Thanks so much to Sheryl for this falling snow crystal component, which again can be made into earrings, bracelet, necklace, and you can really have fun even linking the different components together, playing with colors, playing with chain length if you want to include the chain, and really making the pattern your own. So make sure to post a picture of your design based off of Sheryl's tutorial here in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much, and we look forward to bringing you more inspirational designs.